Dr. Elias Thorne stared at the package as if it were a coffin. In many ways, it was. It had arrived at his cramped London flat, a place that smelled of stale books and cheaper whiskey bearing Spanish postmarks. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was his brother's journal. Elias was a man of cold, hard facts. He was a forensic anthropologist, or had been, until his paper, The Possessed of Laudun, a forensic re-examination of collective hysteria and ergot poisoning, had ended his university career. The faculty hadn't appreciated his assertion that historical demonic possession was merely a cocktail of undiagnosed psychosis, fungal infections, and political theater. He saw the world through a lens of bone measurements and chemical analysis. There were no demons, only delusions. His brother, Leo, was the opposite. Leo, the historian, the romantic, chased shadows. His obsession was the Zugaramurdi cult, the Basque witches of the 17th century. Leo didn't just want to study them. He wanted to prove they had never left. Elias thumbed through the journal. It was filled with Leo's frantic looping script. Notes on Basque folklore, sketches of stele, rambling theories about bloodlines. Then, the final entry. The last page had been torn out, leaving only a jagged remnant. On it, sketched with a trembling hand, was a symbol, a circle bisected by a jagged goat-horned line. Beneath it, one word, Ackerbelts. Elias knew the name, the Black Goat. The ancient Basque deity, later demonized by the Inquisition. According to Leo's own notes, it was a chthonic god of the earth, a protector of animals. According to the Inquisition, it was the devil himself, presiding over the Aquelarre, the witches' sabbath in the caves of Zugaramurdi. A cold, greasy dread settled in Elias's stomach. Leo had gone to that remote, fog-shrouded corner of the Pyrenees looking for a ghost story, and had, it seemed, become one. Elias Thorne, the skeptic, packed a bag. He also packed the weighted sparring gloves he used on the heavy bag in his study. He was an amateur boxer, a necessity learned from a youth spent defending radical ideas with his fists, long before he learned to do it with academia. He was a man of science, but he was not a fool. He knew that fanatics, deluded or not, were still dangerous. He was going to find his brother. The village, it didn't even have a proper name on his map. Just a cluster of ancient stone houses was suffocating in mist. It clung to the Pyrenean foothills like a shroud, smelling of wet slate and wood smoke. As Elias navigated his rented car up the winding, treacherous road, the silence was what struck him first. Not peace, but an active, listening silence. He parked near a small plaza dominated by a grim stone church. The few locals he saw an old woman in black sweeping a stone stoop. Two men skinning a rabbit by a trough did not look up. They merely registered him. Their eyes slid over him, cold and flat as river stones. A single uniformed man emerged from a small, official-looking building. He wore the green of the Guardia Civil. His face was a roadmap of broken veins and fatigue. "You are lost," he said. "It wasn't a question. I'm looking for my brother." Elias held out a photo of Leo grinning, bookish, hopelessly out of place. Leo Thorne, a historian. "He would have been here about 2 weeks ago," the officer grunted, lighting a harsh black cigarette. "Mikkel, I am the law here." He waved a hand at the village. "Such as it is. I remember your brother, full of stupid questions about the Brujas, the witches." He spat. "This place is full of rocks and superstitions. He probably got tired of it and left. Or fell off a mountain. It happens. He wouldn't leave without his journal," Elias insisted. Mikkel shrugged, a weary, bureaucratic gesture. "You can check the pension. But I tell you, he is gone. These people," he lowered his voice, "they are backwards. They don't like outsiders digging up their rand. Traditions." He seemed, to Elias's relief, to be an island of jaded rationality in a sea of rural suspicion. "I'll ask around. But do not expect much." "There's also a mayor?" Mikkel's face tightened almost imperceptibly. "Mayor Elara. She handles the civil matters." He pointed toward a large, well-kept house on the edge of the plaza. She knows everything that happens here. Be polite. She is traditional. Elara was not what Elias expected. She wasn't an old crone. She was young, perhaps 30, with a severe beauty that was as unnerving as it was striking. She met him in a room that felt more like a shrine than an office. Dark wood polished to a gleam, the air thick with the scent of dried herbs. "Doctor Thorne," she said, her voice a low, melodic purr. Her English was perfect, accented with the strange sibilance of the Basque tongue. "We were so very sad when your brother left us. He was a passionate soul. He's missing," Elias said flatly. "I have his journal. He didn't leave." Elara smiled, a slow, radiant expression that didn't touch her eyes. "Missing is such a messy word, Doctor. Perhaps he found what he was looking for. This village, it is a place of deep roots. Some roots are nourishing. Some are entangling." "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, stepping closer, "that your science is very new, but these mountains are very, very old. Your brother was asking about ackerbelts. He was asking about the blood." She tilted her head. "He believed the old cult never ended." He was right. Elias felt a prickle of cold. This was no delusion. This was a confession, delivered with the serene confidence of absolute faith. "You are the leader," he stated. "I am the high priestess, as my mother was, and her mother before her." Elara's gaze was heavy, possessive. "We do what we must to keep the balance. The black goat is our protector. He keeps the sickness from our flocks, the blight from our fields. He asks for so little in return." "What?" Elias demanded, his hands clenching. "Blood? Sacrifice? Purity," she whispered. "Through pain, we offer up the unbelievers, the skeptics. Their rigid, hollow souls are a delicacy. Your brother's soul was so wonderfully, tragically rigid, and now you are here. Another offering, delivered by fate." Rage, hot and clean, cut through Elias's dread. "Where is he?" "He is being prepared," Elara said simply. "Soon, he will be worthy, and so will you." Before Elias could move, two large men, the same he'd seen skinning the rabbit, stepped into the room. They were silent, but their hands were stained dark red. "You should leave, Doctor," Elara said, her voice once again polite, mayoral. "Your brother is not here. We are a simple, quiet people." Elias backed out of the room. The men didn't follow. He was being dismissed, not threatened. Not yet. He walked back into the fog, his heart hammering a boxer's rhythm against his ribs. The entire village was in on it. He found Mikkel leaning against his car, smoking. "She's insane," Elias growled. "She admitted it. She's a high priestess." "They have Leo." Mikkel sighed, crushing his cigarette under his boot. "I told you, superstitious fools. Purity through pain. The black goat. It's madness. I've been trying to get my superiors in Pamplona to take it seriously for years, but nobody wants to interfere with these local customs." He looked at Elias, his expression one of weary complicity. "Look, I am one man. I have a pistol with 6 bullets. They have faith and shovels. But if you have proof—" "Leo's journal," Elias said, pulling it from his bag. "And her. She's the proof." Mikkel shook his head. "Your word against hers. But I know where they hold their accolare. Their Sabbath." He pointed past the village, toward a dark cleft in the mountainside, barely visible through the mist. "The caves. Zugaramurdi. They've been doing it for centuries. It's tonight. The new moon. We're going to the police in the next town," Elias said. "And they will be here by morning. By then, your brother will be purified." Mikkel unlocked the door to his own Guardia Civil Jeep. I am going up there tonight. I'm going to put a stop to this. You can come and help me find your brother, or you can go for help. It is your choice." Elias looked at the dark mountains, then at the rational policeman. Mikkel was his only ally. "I'm coming with you," Elias said. "Good," Mikkel said, his face grim. "Bring your skepticism, Doctor. But maybe bring a heavy stick, too." They drove as far as the jeep could manage, the road turning to a muddy track. The rest of the way was on foot, a steep climb into the cold, damp air of the Pyrenees. The fog was thinner here, and a sliver of moon cast a diseased gray light. Mikkel was surprisingly agile for a man of his build. He moved with a quiet purpose, his service pistol holstered. Elias, his own muscles coiled and tense, stayed close. "They believe the demon lives in her," Mikkel muttered as they scrambled over a ridge of black volcanic rock. "In Ilara, that it passes from mother to daughter. They call it a blessing. They say it gives her strength." "Psychosomatic," Elias breathed, his lungs burning. "The power of belief, hysterical strength. It's documented." "Is it?" Mikkel said, his voice strange. "And what about this?" He stopped. They were at the entrance to the caves. It was not one mouth, but a series of yawning, dark arches in the cliff face, sculpted by ancient water. A low, rhythmic sound was coming from within, a chant. "I will go first," Mikkel said. "I am the law. You wait for my signal, then look for your brother." "Mikkel, this is suicide," Elias said, grabbing his arm. "It is my job," Mikkel said, his face unreadable in the gloom. He drew his pistol. "Good luck, Doctor." He stepped into the largest archway and was swallowed by the dark. Elias waited, his heart pounding. The chanting grew louder, more frantic. He heard a shout. "Mikkel's!" Voice, sharp and authoritative. Then, nothing. The chanting stopped. A terrible, heavy silence fell, broken only by a wet, snapping sound. "Mikkel?" Elias whispered. He pulled a heavy metal flashlight from his bag and stepped into the darkness. The cave was enormous, a natural cathedral of stone. It smelled of damp earth, ammonia, and something else. Something coppery and old. The tunnel sloped down, and Elias could see a flickering light ahead. He emerged into a vast central chamber. Torches lined the walls, casting wild, leaping shadows. In the center, 30 or 40 villagers stood in a circle, dressed in rough, homespun robes. They were chanting, their eyes wide and white in the firelight. On a large flat stone in the middle of the circle lay Leo. He was pale, unconscious, and bound with thick rope. Standing over him was Ilara. But it wasn't Ilara. Her body was wrong. She was convulsing. A series of violent epileptic jerks. Her head was thrown back at an angle Elias knew. Should have snapped her neck. A low, guttural growl rumbled from her chest, a sound that seemed to come from multiple throats at once. Crack. Her right shoulder visibly dislocated, the joint popping from its socket. She didn't scream. The arm, now hanging at an impossible angle, twitched and snapped forward, its fingers clawing the air. Snap, pop. Her knees bent backward, like a bird's. She dropped into a four-legged crouch over Leo, her spine bending with a sound like wet firewood breaking. This was not psychosomatic. This was a violation. Elias's scientific mind recoiled, scrambling for an explanation. A disease. A parasite. Something that decoupled the muscles from the nervous system's limiters. Something that broke the body to use it. Acre belts. He breathed. It was real. I am glad you could join us, Doctor. Elias spun. Mikkel stood in the shadows of the tunnel entrance, his pistol aimed not at the cult, but at Elias's chest. His face was no longer jaded. It was cold, calm, and utterly in control. Mikkel? What the hell? The false ally, Elias realized, sickness rising in his throat. I am not an ally, Doctor. I am the protector, Mikhail said, stepping into the light. The cultists didn't even look at him. Their attention was fixed on the convulsing thing on the altar. These people are my flock. They are simple. They need order. They need their traditions. You believe this? You believe in that? Elias gestured at the horrifying display. Believe? Mikhail snorted. I am not a fanatic like her. I am a pragmatist. I believe in results. Before Ilara's mother passed the gift to her, this village was dying. Sickness in the sheep, crops failing. I saw it. Then, the blessing. And now, our flocks are healthy. Our harvests are strong. We have no crime. We have order. By sacrificing people? Elias was stalling, his eyes darting around the chamber, his boxing instinct screaming at him to find a weapon. An angle. A small price. We take vagrants. Lost hikers. People nobody will miss. Mikhail's eyes hardened. Then your brother came. With his books and his theories, he wouldn't stop digging. He threatened the balance. And Ilara? The host grows weak after a time. The entity needs a new vessel. A strong one. Your brother was suitable. And now me? No, Mikhail said. Ilara has taken a liking to you. She wants to keep you. But the entity is hungry. It has been agitated since it scented you. It wants the skeptic. It wants the fighter. Elias looked back at the altar. The thing that was Ilara was rising, her limbs cracking and resetting. Her head swiveled 180 degrees to look at him, her beautiful face distorted into a mask of ecstatic agony. A chorus of whispers slid from her lips. Thorne, the unbeliever, we will make you pure. The ritual is beginning, Mikhail said, raising his pistol. They will transfer the entity from her to your brother. But she is weak. She might not survive the transfer. And the entity wants you. So, new plan. We will use you instead. A much stronger host. Hold still, Doctor. This will be much easier if I just break your legs. Mikhail fired. The sound was deafening in the cave. Elias hadn't waited. The moment Mikhail's eyes had flicked toward the altar, Elias had moved, diving sideways behind a pillar of stalagmites. The bullet sparked off the stone where he'd been standing. Fanatics! Mikhail roared, firing again. Get him! Protect the priestess! The cultists, roused from their trance, turned as one. They were not trained fighters, but they were frenzied. They came at him with farming implements, a pitchfork, a scythe, heavy wooden clubs. Elias met the first one, a large farmer, with a boxer's economy. He slipped the man's wild overhand swing and drove 3 rapid, brutal punches into his throat and solar plexus. The man collapsed, gagging. A second man swung a club. Elias blocked it with his forearm, the impact jarring him to the shoulder, and countered with a right cross that broke the man's nose with a wet crunch. He was a scientist, but he was also a brawler. He was fighting for his brother, for his sanity, and he was terrified. Crack, scrabble. A sound from above. Elias looked up. The possessed Ilara was climbing the cave wall, her limbs splayed like a spider, her joints bending the wrong way. She was moving with horrifying, twitching speed, her torn dress flapping. She was cutting him off from the altar. He saw Mikhail reloading, shouting orders. Elias had seconds. He had to get to Leo. He shoved another cultist into the path of the man with the scythe and sprinted for the altar. He was halfway there when Ilara dropped from the ceiling, landing in front of him with a thud that shook the stone floor. She rose, her body a nightmare of broken angles. She was taller than before, her spine visibly elongating, her skin stretching taut and pale. The whispering chorus from her throat was louder now, a dry, insectile hiss. We see you, brittle man of science. She lunged. Elias had fought men twice his size. He had never fought anything like this. It was not human speed. It was the speed of a striking snake. He tried to bob and weave, but a hand, its fingers elongated, knuckles bulging, lashed out, and caught him across the chest. It felt like being hit by a car. Elias flew backward, slamming into the cave wall. His ribs screamed. He tasted blood. The creature Alara was just a puppet now stalked toward him, its head twitching, its bones popping with every step. He was going to die. His science, his logic, his fists, they were useless. And then, his eyes, adjusting to the gloom, saw it. In the back of the chamber, near the altar, was the remnant of an old forge. The caves had been used by smugglers, by soldiers, not just by cultists. There was a rusted anvil, a trough of black water, and jammed into a crack in the rock, a long, heavy bar of iron. A pig iron billet, left to rust for 100 years. Cold iron. The thought hit him, a fragment from Leo's journal. A quote from an Inquisition file. The demon, Ackerbelts, cannot abide the touch of cold iron, for it is the metal of man's industry and the enemy of the wild earth from which the demon draws its power. It was folklore. Superstition. A metaphor. Is it? A desperate part of his brain screamed. Look at that thing! Is that a metaphor? Mikkel was advancing, pistol raised. Hold him, my lady! Pin him for the blessing! The Alara thing was 10 feet away. It was smiling, its jaw unhinged, revealing teeth that were wrong, sharpened. Elias did the only thing he could. He didn't fight. He ran. He sprinted past the creature, vaulting over the altar, ignoring his brother's unconscious form for a moment. The creature shrieked a sound of pure, multi-voiced rage and scrambled after him. Elias grabbed the iron bar. It was heavy, rough, and freezing cold. He wrenched it from the stone. Mikkel leveled his pistol. It's over, Doctor. The Alara thing was on him. It leaped, landing on his back, its inhuman strength driving him to his knees. Its claws, broken fingernails, and splintered bone tore at his shoulders. Its whispering voice was in his ear. A fine, strong host. Elias felt his shoulder dislocate from the pressure. The pain was blinding. He roared, a sound of pure animal terror, and spun, slamming his back and the creature against the stone forge. The creature hissed, but held on. Mikkel smiled, taking careful aim. With his one good arm, Elias surged up, twisting his body. He wasn't an exorcist. He was a boxer, and this was a killing blow. He rammed the iron bar backward, not with finesse, but with all his weight, all his fear, all his rage. He wasn't aiming for a heart. He was aiming for the center. The bar punched through the creature's abdomen. There was no explosion, no holy light. There was only a sound. It was not a human scream. It was a high-pitched, tectonic shrieking, a sound of pressure released, of a billion insects screaming as one. The chorus of whispers erupted from Alara's mouth in a final, agonizing howl. The creature convulsed violently. Its limbs snapped back into their human alignment. The joints popped, the bones reset. The Alara thing arched its back, its eyes wide and suddenly, terribly human. For a split second, Elias saw the real Alara, trapped inside, looking at him with pure, unadulterated terror. Then she went limp. The iron bar had impaled her, pinning her to the stone. The entity, the thing, was gone, expelled, homeless. Alara, the beautiful, fanatical mare, was just a dead woman with a bar of iron through her chest. The chamber was silent, save for the dripping of water. The cultists stared, their fanaticism broken, replaced by raw, primal fear. Their god was dead. No, Mikkel whispered, his face ashen. His pragmatism, his order, had just been impaled on a piece of rust. He raised his pistol at Elias. Elias didn't hesitate. He pulled the pistol he'd taken from the first guard. He knocked out, No, he didn't have one. He'd used his fists. Michael fired. The bullet tugged at Elias's sleeve. Elias threw the only thing he had, the heavy, rusted anvil hammer from the forge. It was a clumsy, desperate throw, but Michael was in shock. The hammer caught him in the chest, breaking ribs and sending him staggering back. He fell, his head striking the stone floor with a sickening crack. The protector lay still. Elias, his arms screaming, his body a mass of bruises, stumbled to the altar. He fumbled with the ropes binding Leo, his fingers slick with his own blood. "Leo! Leo! Wake up!" He slapped his brother's face. Leo's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and dull. "Elias! What? Where?" No time. Elias hauled his brother to his feet. Leo's legs buckled. "Get up!" Elias roared, adrenaline surging. "They're scared! It won't last! We have to go! Now!" The cultists were in disarray. Some were weeping over Alara's body. Others were backing away, staring at Elias as if he were the demon. He had killed their god. He slung Leo's arm over his good shoulder and, grabbing the heavy flashlight, began the painful, staggering journey back to the cave entrance. One cultist, braver than the rest, tried to block their path. Elias didn't even slow down. He swung the heavy flashlight, caving in the man's temple. He was beyond science. He was beyond reason. He was pure survival. They burst out of the cave into the pre-dawn chill. The mist was returning, and the sky was a bruised, sickly purple. They scrambled, fell, and slid down the rocky path. Behind them, from the cave, a wail of despair began. The sound of a faith shattered. They reached the jeep. Elias had grabbed the keys from Mikel's body. He threw Leo in the passenger seat, his hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. He drove like a madman, fishtailing down the mud track, careening onto the road, and speeding away from the village in the mist. He didn't stop until they were 50 miles away. The sun was burning through the fog, and the sound of a main highway reached his ears. He pulled over, his body finally succumbing to the shock. He rested his head on the steering wheel, his breath coming in ragged, painful sobs. Leo was awake, clearer now, staring at his own hands. "It was real, wasn't it?" he whispered. "Ackerbelts. It was real." Elias Thorne, the forensic anthropologist, the man of facts, looked at the blood on his knuckles and the purple, inhuman-looking bruises forming on his chest from Alara's touch. He thought of her bones snapping. He thought of the chorus of voices. He thought of the impossible, spider-like climb. "No," Elias said, his voice raw. "It wasn't a demon." Leo looked at him, confused. "It was a parasite," Elias continued, the words forming his new, terrible gospel. "An ancient biological entity. It rewrites the host's physical structure. It uses the body like a tool, breaking and reforging it. The cold iron. It must have a high iron content, a biological intolerance. It wasn't holy. It was just poison. He was rebuilding his world. He had to. It was the only way to stay sane. It was real," he said, finally, meeting his brother's eyes. "And we killed it." Leo nodded, a slow, dawning horror on his face. Elias put the jeep in gear. He had survived, not with faith, not with prayer. He had survived by accepting the impossible monster was real, and then finding a practical, brutal way to kill it. He was Dr. Elias Thorne. And he was a man who, God help him, now believed in demons. He just called them by another name.